everyone, and welcome to BVM Sports Chalk Talk. I'm Lucas Semb alongside Scott Procter and Matt Morris, and we are back for another episode at the start of the NFL season, less than a month away. It feels like we were just talking about the Super Bowl, but here we are discussing the start of a new season. Today, we'll start the show by picking our division winners for the NFC. Scott, let's get right into it with the NFC North. Who's going to win that division?
Yeah, Lou, great question. I hinted at this last week, and we discussed the implications of Aaron Rodgers' arrival at training camp. But, I expect the Green Bay Packers to win the NFC North on the backs of the reigning NFL MVP and arguably the league's best wide receiver in Davante Adams. I believe the Minnesota Vikings can win 10 to 11 games so long as they stay healthy with, elite playmakers on offense and honestly a top 5 defensive line, a real scary unit. And I also believe, the Packers have a real franchise quarterback on their hands in Justin Fields, who can be an impact player as early as this season. But the Packers, to me, are the most complete, the most talented team in the division, again, with an all-pro tackle, David Bakhtiari, Pro Bowl running back, and, Aaron Jones, and stars on that defense, Jair Alexander, Zadarius Smith, who are now with a new defensive coordinator that is reportedly making a great impression on that unit in Joe Barry. And I'm sure Matt can allude to that a little bit more. So, this team, the Green Bay Packers, are a Super Bowl contender to me. And although the North will be competitive this season, this division crown would just be a step towards the Packers' ultimate season goals.
Yeah, Scott, I completely agree with you. And I talked about it last week where I said that the Packers, along with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are the 2 favorites, in my opinion, to repeat in NFC, to get to the NFC Championship game. Most specifically because both teams decided to run it back. They basically brought back all the talent that allowed them to have the success last year. And the Packers have also added a few pieces as far as Amari Rodgers, who I continuously hear good things about and is working really well with another, guy they brought back in Randall Cobb. And not only that, but to your point, defensive coordinator Joe Barry seems to really have, lit a fire under this defense that at times does tend to underperform based on the talent level they have from each position. So I expect the defense to show up. And I know that even on special teams, which has been an issue for the Packers in the past, Matt LaFleur has been really adamant about cleaning that up. So I expect the Packers team to come out this season ready to not only get back to the NFC Championship game for a 3rd straight year, but to finally finish with a W in that game. And as great as, the Vikings have been over the last few years, I think Mike Zimmer is one of the best coaches in the NFL. I just don't see the Vikings being able to overcome what the Packers have. And so I think that at the end of the day, even though I expect the Vikings to be competitive and to, push Green Bay to their limits, I still would say the Packers are the favorites in the NFC North.
Sure, I hear you guys. Well, this is going to get interesting because I think this is the Vikings' year. And Matt, a lot of the reason I think it is the Vikings' year is for what you think is to the Packers' benefit that they reloaded. It's the same reason I don't have them representing the NFC in the Super Bowl, which we talked about on a previous show. But between the offseason drama, the loss of Corey Linsley and Jamal Williams, and then really just reloading on the rest, I don't think it's enough. Because the Vikings did get better. And I'll talk about that a little bit later here. But whether people want to admit it or not, teammates in the locker room are going to have some sort of animosity towards the way Rodgers handled the offseason. And it'll play out in the season, and it'll show whether it comes to the forefront of the national news or not. I know that when guys are making themselves the news rather than the team, and that's just kind of how it pans out sometimes. And guys might not say it, but there's definitely going to be some long-lasting effects of the way that all played out. But mainly, though, the Vikings, they just got better. Justin Jefferson back for a 2nd year after having a record-breaking rookie season. Dalvin Cook is in his prime. But defensively, the Vikings were awful last year. This year, not so much. Injuries and COVID wrecked them last year, but they are back. Anthony Barr will be back after a season-long injury. Stephen Weatherly, Sheldon Richardson, and former Giants big man Delvin Tomlinson will man that defensive line. Scott, you alluded to that. That is going to be one of the top units in the National Football League. Yep. And then the defensive back unit was down huge last year. They took a big step backward. But this year, adding Patrick Peterson and Bashad Breeland. This is a team coached by a defensive-minded coach and Mike Zimmer, and he finally has the pieces to be good again. The offense will take care of itself, but they need that defensive back, the back unit back, and I think this is it. This is their year. to finally dethrone the Packers and get back into the, Super Bowl mix.
I mean, Luke, I like what you're saying. I'm glad to
Super
see
Bowl
that.
mix. Go ahead, Matt.
Ooh.
Handle that, Matt.
You know what? I'll say this. First of all, the Vikings, their secondary period was atrocious last year. I think they were pulling guys from, the street in Minneapolis, just asking if they could go and try and cover Davante Adams because the injuries were serious. It seemed like every time. So if they can build that back, that's going to be very helpful. But to kind of go on what you said with Rodgers, I'll take something that he and Davante Adams posted. They referenced The Last Dance. And you know what? I watched that great documentary, and one thing you can take away from it, and maybe a little bit even of Kobe Bryant, is even if you have issues with the person as far as what Michael Jordan does in practice, what he does outside of practice, at the end of the day, if you're on 23's team, you're going to go and have a chance to win a championship. And all I could say about for the Packers is everyone in that locker room and everyone in the state of Wisconsin knows that if 12 is under center and he's slinging the ball, you have a chance at a Super Bowl. I don't expect any issues as far as the locker room goes. They have been a great chemistry team over the last few years. And not only that, but their stars back each other up. You will not find people that back each other up more as far as David Bakhtiari, Davante Adams. Everyone respects what Rodgers did and understands that there's not only just a locker room, but there's also a business side of this. And that was what was going on with Rodgers. It was the business side. Devin Funchess said it best. We're going to focus on who's out there playing. Let business be business. That's his own stuff. We're going to focus on what we can do on the field. So I don't expect those chemistry issues that you alluded to. And honestly, like I said, if 12's out there, they got a chance at an NFC championship and a Super Bowl. And so that's what I expect.
Right. I get what you're saying there, and it makes total sense. But in my opinion, there's good, and we're going to talk about this a little later. We have a question that'll kind of tackle this, but there's a lot of guys in football, that need to be on the same page. You mentioned Michael Jordan. Not as many guys need to be on the same page. There's only 15 guys on a team. Football's got well over 60. That's a lot of guys and a lot of moving pieces that need to be on the same page. And I think somewhere in there's going to be someone, somewhere, some way who has an issue with it. And I think talks about that will resurface. But for the Packers' sake, I hope you're right. And being professionals, they should be able to handle it. But I just like the Vikings this year. I think they got a lot in the tank. And I'm especially excited about Patrick Peterson being there to kind of bring up their young guys who they drafted a couple of years ago and just obviously need that help. But let's move to the NFC East. Matt, who do you think is going to win that division?
It's the weakest division, arguably, in football. At the end of the day, if somebody made an argument for basically everyone except maybe the Eagles, I'd listen to it at least. For me, it's Dallas. I think that with Dak being back, Ezekiel Elliott showing a lot of promise, if that O-line is healthy, and I also believe in Dan Quinn and what he can do with, an abysmal defense last year. If he can make it just manageable, the offensive firepower that they have with Dak under center allows Dallas to win most games, even if they're still giving up, 20 points. So I think that Dallas is the team to beat in the NFC East. And, they will continue to be that team, at least this season.
Yeah, man, I think the Cowboys are the popular pick for this division so long as they stay healthy. But, I picked the NFC East winner correctly on this show last season. So make sure y'all pay attention. I'm looking at the New York Football Giants, who won 6 games in Joe Judge's first season as head coach last season, with Daniel Jones injured for most of the year and without their best player in Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley. The Giants added my guy Kenny Golladay, my fellow St. Rita High School alum, and the 2019 NFL receiving touchdown leader, as their number 1 wide receiver, while adding some real speed to that offense with John Ross and the drafting of an explosive playmaker in Kadarius Toney from Florida with the number 20 overall pick. The addition of Kyle Rudolph at tight end from the Vikings to take some pressure off of Evan Ingram doesn't hurt either. But this was a top 10 defensive unit last season in terms of points allowed, and that's where they'll be best under Joe Judge, who, again, is a defensive-minded head coach. So long as Daniel Jones can take another step forward, take care of the football, the return of, in my opinion, the league's best running back in Saquon, and the arrival of a legitimate number 1 wide receiver takes his team over the top to a division title.
Sure. Scott, I'm sorry, but I feel like this is a no-brainer. I'm on Matt's side here. The division has been one of the worst for a while, and no team that clearly sits upon the top, but that's going to be changed real quickly with Dak Prescott back healthy and playing for the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Zeke Elliott, Michael Gallup, their star power is unmatched in this division. And the Giants, Scott, I knew it was going this way with Kenny Galladay, your St. Rita guy, but he's already hurt and going to be out for multiple weeks. And that's not a promising start. And that's been the story of his career in the NFL so far. But the Giants, they don't have the best defense in the division or the best offense in the division. And that's not a recipe for winning. The Cowboys, clearly have the best. I'll let you go in a second, but the Cowboys clearly have the best team in the division. The Redskins might give them a run for their money. I love that defense, what they're doing there. They add Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson turning into a real runner. But I'm taking Dak over Fitzpatrick every day. And that's the main thing for me. Scott, what do you got to say?
I was just going to say, you're right. The Giants don't have the best defense or the best offense in the division, but their defense is second only to Washington. Their offense, in my opinion, is second only to Dallas. And with that being said, I believe the Giants are the most complete team in this division. That's why I think they'll win it again. This ultimately all hinges on Daniel Jones. And again, he needs to take a big leap forward in year 3. We just saw Josh Allen take a huge leap forward in his third year in the NFL. And again, that came with the addition of a number 1 wide receiver in Stephon Diggs. And although I would admit Kenny Galladay is no Stephon Diggs, again, this is a talented go up and get the ball type of receiver, a possession number 1 X receiver for your team that the Giants have just not had in the past. And again, I believe Joe Judge is honestly one of the better head coaches in the NFL. And I can't say the same for Mike McCarthy. We know he has a Super Bowl in the past, but we know that was on the backs of number 12. So, with all that being said, I think the Giants, although they probably won't be as good defensively as Washington, they'll still be a top 10 unit. They'll still be much better than Dallas defensively. And I think that's what's going to win them games in this, tough, although weak division.
I'll say this. It sounds like, Scott, you mentioned it. It's the injuries. Can Daniel Jones stay healthy and not turn the ball over? Saquon Barkley, can he return from a season-ending injury and be solid? And so I think that those arguments can be true about both Dallas and New York. And in just my opinion, if it's coming down to injuries and who can stay healthy and who's going to come back better from an injury, I'm going to go with Dallas over New York simply because there's been more proven. Dak was having a career year, and we probably wouldn't even be talking about, who's going to win the NFC East had Dak stayed healthy.
Sure. And although generally speaking, it's probably the worst division in football, it's also one of my favorites, just some hard-nosed play. I know we talk about that a lot, so I'm excited to see how the NFC East turns out this year. But let's move to the NFC West, probably the best division in football, in my opinion. Scott, who do you got coming out of that one?
Yeah, the West is going to be super interesting. Like you just mentioned, it's probably the toughest division in football and probably the only one where a legitimate case can be made for all 4 as division champs. But I look at the San Francisco 49ers roster and don't see many holes. They were the most injury-riddled team in the NFL this season ago and won 6 games with Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard combining to start 10 games. Jimmy Garoppolo, say what you want about him in terms of talent, but he has a career 24-8 record as a starter in the NFL. That's pretty damn good. Head coach Kyle Shanahan has already said that Trey Lance will play in some capacity this season, and all indications are that he is a real player early on, making some spectacular plays so far here in training camp. So whoever is under center will be a major upgrade at the quarterback position from a season ago, and in good hands with Kyle Shanahan, one of the best play callers in the entire league, calling the shots. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Mohamed Sanu, and obviously the menace that is George Kittle at tight end is a scary perimeter crew with Raheem Mostert, one of the fastest dudes in the league, and Ohio State rookie Trey Sermon, man, in the backfield. But again, another common theme here, this defensive front led by Nicky Bosa, Eric Armstead, Dee Ford, Javon Kinlaw, with Fred Warner, who the 49ers just made the highest paid inside linebacker in the entire league before Darius Leonard's new record-breaking deal just a few days ago. That's who's going to win them close games in this tough division over Seattle, your Rams, Luke, and the Cardinals as well. So I like the 49ers to take a really, really tough NFC West crown and honestly want to be one of the best 4 or 5 teams in the NFC.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, I agree with you. I have San Francisco coming out of the West as well. For a lot of the same reasons I kind of chose Dallas. I believe that they'll come back from those injuries and be the team that they were in 2019, which made it to the Super Bowl and looked dominant. One of the biggest issues they had last year, even with having Mullins and Beathard or CJ as quarterback, was they were minus 11 in turnover ratio. When they won the turnover battle, they were 5-1. When they lost the turnover battle, they were 1-9. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to give you a minus 11 turnover ratio. And then you throw in the wild card that is Trey Lance. That looks like his ceiling is, infinite. And with Shanahan, I expect him to have the best opportunity to be successful as well. I think that this San Francisco 49ers team is going to look a heck of a lot more like they did in 2019 than they did in 2020. And you said it. I mean, all those great players coming back from injury, if they stay healthy and they continue to play like they do, I expect them to do well. And then, Scott, you mentioned last week when we were talking Packers that the Packers have one of the strongest, strength of schedules. And that was one of the reasons you didn't choose the Packers as one of your favorites. Well, the 49ers have the 29th ranked strength of schedule. Woo-hoo! So all you have to do, if you're the 49ers, you take care of it. You have to win the division. Those are must-win games. Those are important games. But everything else, you're able to, take on weaker teams and kind of build back that strength that you had. You're not thrown right into the fire with a bunch of players that are coming back from injury. So I fully expect Shanahan, who's one of the best coaches in the NFL, to have this team, running on all cylinders and to bounce back.
Yeah, absolutely. I know this division looks a lot different, though, since 2019 when the Rams were looking dominant. A lot of new faces here. And you guys know who I'm taking. I'm taking the Rams this year. I'm sticking to my guns. Everyone wondered if Matthew Stafford really put the Rams over the top. And we talked about Rodgers' love for him. Other NFL big names talking about how good he is, and no one really gives him that national love. Well, now Rams coaches and players are saying the same thing. Reports out of camp have been that he is really, really good. And with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, who in terms of production have been one of the best duos in the league, they'll have the best QB they've ever had throwing to them. Losing Cam Akers obviously hurts, because he had a lot of promise, killing it at FSU behind no offensive line, essentially. But Darrell Henderson played a lot last year, and he played really well. They had a three-headed monster at running back, and Henderson is more than capable of doing what he did last year and being a good starting running back. But obviously, though, the main thing for me is that defense is so strong, best in the league. I like what the Cardinals did. I like the 49ers, when healthy. The Seahawks are all right. But I don't trust anyone more than I do the Sean McVay and Stafford-led squad. Sean McVay, one of the best bright young minds in the NFL in terms of coaching. And we've seen how he just has a sponge of a memory, and he knows not to make the same mistake twice. So I think this is a team that has learned from bad losses, has brought in a true leader in Stafford, and one of the best to really do it right now, in my opinion. And that's going to put them over the top in this division.
Listen, Luke, I know this is your team, man, and I have no doubts that the Rams will be very, very much competitive again in that 10 to 11 win range. But, they've already been snake bitten a bit in terms of the injury bug. Obviously, Cam Akers, who was going to be their number one back, is out for this season. They lost, what was a strong defensive backfield from last season, essentially all to the Cleveland Browns in terms of Troy Hill and John Johnson, who were corner pieces of that great backfield alongside Jalen Ramsey. And again, also, I want to keep mentioning this because you keep talking about Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp as if they're a top 3 or 4 receiving combo. And I'm just going to run past a couple combos in the league at receiver. And you tell me which of these you're taking Cooper Kupp and Rob Woods over. How about Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill? Just stop me when you hear one that you're willing to take your Rams duo over. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, nah. Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, your boys, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. How about in Dallas, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper? How about in Tampa, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin? So needless to say, again,
hey, to be honest with you, I'm going to cut you off. I would take those two over a lot of them. I said specifically in here in terms of production, just because they don't have, that flashy style or the same gaudy names that these other big guys do. This is one of the most productive tandems in the National Football League at wide receiver. And I'd take them over a lot of units, especially with Stafford throwing them the ball.
Okay. Well, I guess that remains to be seen. Let's move on. Let's talk about another division, and I think will be pretty easy to decipher here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move to the NFC South. Matt, who do you got taking it?
It's Tampa Bay. I mean, New Orleans Saints were the only true team that could compete with them, and they did a pretty good job of it last season, but Tampa Bay brought it all back. They're the reigning Super Bowl champions. I'm excited to see what the Panthers can do, but it's Tampa Bay.
Yeah, listen, the Bucs return all 22 starters, and they're led by quarterback in Tom Brady, who not only is the greatest of all time, is somebody who won't expect less than this standard. And when you look at the rest of the NFC South and see Drew Brees is retired, Atlanta has traded away its best wide receiver in franchise history, and the Panthers are trying to resurrect the career of Sam Darnold. The standard for Tampa Bay is a division crown at minimum. Tampa Bay's defense will give after the quarterback better than just about everybody in the entire league. Once again, they're coached by arguably the league's best defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles. And, you know, we all know the Bucs are loaded and deep offensively at running back, receiver, tight end. And their major challenge all season will be to keep Tom Brady upright, because an injury to him should be the only thing to prevent the Buccaneers from at least returning and appearing in the NFC Championship game.
Absolutely, and I agree with both of you guys. The Buccaneers were a Super Bowl team a year ago and should remain there. There was really nobody pushing them in the South. The Saints were probably the closest, and they're going to have to adjust to life, like Scott said, without Drew Brees for the first time, and manage their rifts with Michael Thomas, who they have had a lot of issues with heading into the season. The Panthers will be moving to another new QB this season in Darnold after Bridgewater last year, and then the Falcons, love them offensively. Mike Davis, Kyle Pitts additions. That's great. But their defense is going to get carved up by all three of those teams. The Buccaneers are just complete, well-coached, led by Tom Brady. There's no argument to be made here. We all got Tampa Bay taking the South. Well, let's transition to basketball. And as we transition into it, the question I have for you, Matt, regards one of the NBA's best young stars versus one of the NFL's best young talents. Giannis Antetokounmpo versus Pat Mahomes. At the end of their careers, who will have won more championships and why?
Well, I think Giannis is going to have more championships, or at least has the better chance to do so than Patrick Mahomes. And it comes down to a few things. I mean, Luke, you referenced it earlier. There's 15 guys on an NBA basketball team. There's 63 on an NFL football team. That alone, you allow for one player to have way more of an effect on the game. And we just saw it in the NBA Finals in a 7-game series, which is also a big difference. It's a one-and-done thing in the NFL. In the NBA, you get, a 7-game series to at least try to eke out a win or something. You saw Giannis drop more than 40 in 3 different games. And in game 6, he took over, dropped 50, and solidified that championship for his first, and the first for the Bucs in 50 years. That specifically, you have more effect. Mahomes made some great throws and tried his best on an injured foot to win that Super Bowl game against Tampa Bay. And Tyreek Hill dropped the ball. You had guys dropping the ball. His O-line just completely left him in the lurch, and Tampa Bay took over in that sense. Tom Brady, as great as he is, and as great as he made those throws, that wasn't the reason the Bucs won the Super Bowl this last season. They won the Super Bowl because Pat Mahomes had no time to throw the ball or find anyone open. Not only that, but you look at the NFL and the cycles that go on. I think that you see these teams go through a successful period where they're truly a Super Bowl contender for like 3 to 5 years, and then they have to recycle it, especially because of the salary cap situation that is different than in the NBA. You can see teams like the Warriors, the Miami Heat, the Lakers right now, even the Bucks and the Nets, who are, pushing into the luxury tax. They don't have a hard salary cap. They can add in talent if they're willing to pay extra amounts of luxury tax. The NFL, you have a hard cap. If you give your money to a guy like Pat Mahomes, or you give your money to certain star players, that leaves less money for other players across the entire roster. And yes, Tampa Bay is a good example of a bunch of guys saying, let's run it back. But that's for 1 year. That is one more chance for them to win, possibly back-to-back Super Bowls. But after that, you're probably going to see a lot of these guys, Chris Godwin's a good example, move on and get their big paycheck, because it's not guaranteed money in the NFL either. I mean, you have in the NBA 15 guys making a lot of money, and that's been a crux in, an issue with NFL players for a long time now, is they don't get paid as much. as NBA players. And then finally, it's a shorter season where injuries play a bigger role. In the NBA, you can see a team like Brooklyn have injuries throughout the season, and as long as a few of their key guys are healthy, they still get into the playoffs and have a chance to, really move on and push into, NBA finals, or even the Lakers for that matter. They limped into the playoffs with both their key guys hurt, and they were still able to make it. In the NFL, yeah, they've added a few more playoff spots, but if Pat Mahomes goes down and it's more than like a 2 to 3 week injury, that might be the season. And for that reason, I just think that, and also, that's just how I look at it. And as great as Pat Mahomes is, as great as Giannis is, I think Giannis in the NBA, just in general, has a better chance of winning multiple championships and winning more championships than Pat Mahomes.
Matt, that was long-winded. That was very cute. I love that, that you believe Giannis is capable of these amazing things. But for this conversation, the answer is Patrick.
There's nothing to believe he's capable of these amazing things.
Fine, Scott. Let me ask you this then. You know what? Let me ask you this.
I'm already being attacked. I didn't even get into it. What's up? Talk to me, man. Ask me a question.
Is Pat Mahomes better than Aaron? The two guys Pat Mahomes has been compared to are Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. How many Super Bowls do they have?
They have what? Two combined?
Yeah.
3 combined. 2
How many
combined,
does Giannis have right now? How many does Pat Mahomes have right now? They all have 1.
Right. They're tied right now. Right. I don't know what that proves. I don't know what that lining question
What that proves is
but
that it's almost impossible. It's so hard for great NFL quarterbacks to carry their team to a Super Bowl and win a championship. As great as Pat Mahomes is, football is the ultimate team sport. And so you're not really relying on just –
it's difficult to win a Super Bowl. It's difficult to win the NBA Finals. And you're talking about quarterbacks. We're talking about Tom Brady, who has, 7 of them things. And again, that's the one person that Patrick Mahomes at this point in his career is being compared to. We look at the great of NBA if we're going down this road, and that's Michael Jordan, who has 6 of them things. Nobody's comparing Giannis Antetokounmpo realistically to Michael Jordan. But let me get to my point. The answer is
are you saying Pat Mahomes is compared to who?
Tom Brady.
In what ways are they the same?
I'm talking about in terms of –
explain that to me. Do you see –
Let me do it. You just asked me the question. Let me answer. In terms of career trajectory, that's the name that Patrick Mahomes has been compared to by myself and many others. Because, again, I'll get to it. This man, Patrick Mahomes, has been in the league for 3 seasons. He's been the starter for 3 seasons. In those 3 seasons, he's appeared in 3 AFC championship games, been to 2 Super Bowls, and won 1 Lombardi. For comparison's sake, Giannis has now been in the NBA for 8 seasons and just appeared in his first NBA Finals. While I do believe that Giannis will earn another title or 2 before it's all said and done, and I've said that before on the show, I also believe Patrick Mahomes will end up getting Tom Brady some run for his money as the greatest team sport winner ever and win maybe 4, maybe 5 Super Bowls. Mahomes is obviously a year younger than Giannis. You can play the quarterback position much longer than you can be an elite superstar predicated on athleticism, and Mahomes will be surrounded by greatness for the foreseeable future. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid will each go down as one of the greatest ever at their respective positions. We likely will not say the same for Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, who are tied to the Bucs for their foreseeable future. As great as they are, Mahomes will be up 2-1 in championships on Giannis after this season, and I don't think we'll be tied up ever again.
Sure. I'm going to have to, again, agree with Matt here. There are so many moving pieces in football that play a part in winning. If you lose an offensive lineman, there's a huge gap to fill. If you lose a defensive back, the offense is going to attack you. If you lose a kicker, you're putting someone in. We've seen kicking kill teams time over time again. The slightest contributor to a team, losing them can ruin you in the NFL. In basketball, you do it on your own. Can you put the ball in the hoop? Can you get a stop? You don't have to rely on, will someone block for you? Can someone catch this pass? Can someone hold this kick? Can someone hold the ball down while I kick it? Like it's you. You put the ball in the hoop.
So people win NBA titles by themselves. That's what you just said. You said you do it by yourself. Is that what we're saying here on this show, that you can win NBA titles single-handedly? Is that what we're saying?
I don't think that at all.
So why say that? So why open that way?
Because relatively you can do it on your own compared to an NFL player. And I know you understand that. Thank you.
But I disagree. I disagree because nobody has more power or more, basically more power in terms of winning than an NFL quarterback. And when you're the greatest, when you're arguably the best, not only in the league, but arguably one of the greatest to ever do it at the quarterback position, your ceiling in terms of getting towards multiple championships is going to be higher.
I don't know if that's true, because we literally saw Pat Mahomes hit Tyreek Hill with the pass in the Super Bowl that he dropped. And
how many times do you think that's going to happen again?
We saw a rookie, Antoine Winfield Jr., give him one of these. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. You cannot win on your own. Pat Mahomes was on one leg, extending plays an extra 20 seconds, running 30 yards into the backfield, making a perfect pass.
In the Super
Bowl. He did all of that just for someone else to let him down. In the NBA, Giannis is the best player in the league. He can take over. He had a game-winning alley-oop dunk. He had a game-winning block. He had a 50-piece in the NBA championship. Regardless of what the other did, he was going to step in and fill that void that anyone else would have left.
And Scott, for example, you mentioned that Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes are being compared to each other. And I agree. No one is comparing Giannis Antetokounmpo to Michael Jordan. But they are comparing him to Tim Duncan. They are comparing him to Hakeem Olajuwon.
Sure.
They are comparing him to other guys who have won multiple championships over a long period of time in the NBA. And so, yeah, a quarterback can stay in the NFL for a long time, but Tom Brady is the outlier. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger has been in the league a long time, and he is not Ben Roethlisberger anymore. To say that Pat Mahomes, whose entire game is predicated on athleticism and his ability to be a mobile quarterback, as well as have a great arm, there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to continue that long enough for the Kansas City Chiefs to continuously, put talent around him that allows him to have the success. Giannis, in the same breath, could continue to play like a LeBron James, who is also kind of an outlier, but also predicated on athleticism for the most part. He's changed his game somewhat now, but
he's also one of the greatest passers ever.
I just thought of something else I have to say as we wrap up here. Scott, you mentioned how the quarterback is the leader of the team. They lead the team. They carry the team. Giannis carries the Bucks right now. But at some point, let's say both of their games start to regress a little bit. Yeah. Giannis can go join other stars and win another, because in basketball, someone else can carry you.
But is Giannis going to do that? Is Giannis going to do that?
Who knows? I'm just saying, as the quarterback, you cannot go to a team and be carried by a wide receiver. The quarterback needs to be the best player. Giannis right now is the best player.
Didn't Tom Brady just leave a franchise, go to another one that was already pretty well set up, and win a Super Bowl? Did that not just happen? Yes or no?
Yes, he did. And we obviously know the issues that the Patriots had. The Buccaneers did not have those issues. And Tom Brady went in there and had an unbelievable season.
Okay, but your point is a mute one, because you said superstars in the NBA can go join another team to win a ring. That's obviously also applicable in the NFL.
Patrick McCaw has 3 championships. John Sally has 6 championships. You can be nobody and go get an NBA championship. Pat Mahomes will have to be the best player on a team every single year for him to win them.
Scott, my argument
that's not the same for Giannis.
I understand that Pat Mahomes is great. My argument is that there's a lot more examples in the NFL of great quarterbacks not winning multiple or any championships, and there are plenty of examples in the NBA. Roll your eyes, but
because there are plenty of examples in the NBA of great players who were once top 5 players in the NBA who don't have a ring. And earlier, Matt, you bring up Tim Duncan in terms of a comparison to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Tim Duncan was drafted to a franchise that already had a Hall of Famer and David Robinson on the team. Tim Duncan, for the most of those rings, played alongside
Pat Mahomes was drafted to a playoff contender in Kansas City.
Hall of Famers.
Hey,
and Pat Mahomes was drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs, who were already playing great with Alex Smith and a playoff contender.
That's why he's probably going to win multiple titles. That's the whole thing.
I'm going to have to break this up as we are running out of time. Let's just
Aaron Rodgers was drafted to win a great team, the Green Bay Packers. He's won 1.
Hey, take this up with the Guy Post Show. It's hard to win a championship in any league, and let's just leave it there. But that's all the time we have today here on Chalk Talk. From myself, Scott Procter, and Matt Morris, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you here next week.